We're going to say a number at the same time and see if we can get the same number. 1, 2, 3, 7. Oh. Okay, again. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm saying it is a willingness to sacrifice. Don't close doors and say that I'm alone or my life has ended. Your life has not ended. There is a lot of support out there, especially if you're a UCT student.
Hey, what's up? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Shawco Mental Health Podcast. This is the part where the crowd cheers. This is going to be a space where we'll be discussing all things mental health, from what is mental health, the stigma surrounding mental health, and of course, how to better take care of yourself. Every week, we're going to be having a different guest who will be sharing their insights and valuable knowledge on the different topics at hand. Before we go any further, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Lutana Lutila, a content creator and mental health enthusiast. And I'm not alone, I'm with my co-host.
Hey guys, my name is Stuart. I am a social work student. I'm not a content creator. I am joined today by a very special guest, Busi. She is part of the UCT alumni. She studied social work at UCT, and she's worked in mental health all her life. You know, she's worked as a social worker, she's worked in women's health, and more recently she's been involved in UCT through the peer counselling program, and has moved on now to working with the Pambile Cares program, which she started. Over to you, Busi. We'd like to know a little bit about your time spent as a social worker, what that entailed.
All right. Thank you, Lishagana, for pronouncing your name correctly, and Stuart. So it's such a privilege to be surrounded by social workers. I am getting inspired, right? So my name is Busi. I am a postgrad, currently just finishing off my clinical masters in social work. So I've been on the field for almost 10 years now. Sounds long, right? But I also feel like I just graduated yesterday. So part of my practice as a social worker, I am a clinical social worker. I've been, after I've graduated, I've worked for a small organization specializing on women sexual reproductive health in the safe space in one of the townships. And so the interesting thing that I can mention about that experience, you get to see the real life issues. Not that when you're a student you don't, but you know, sometimes we tend to forget the social factors that are happening out there. But when you're actually in the community, you get to see that poverty still exists. Mental health does exist, and mental health exists among people who have no idea that they are going through a mental condition. You know, so you start to see those things become so real. Part of that, part-time, I was also working as a peer counselor in the student wellness at UCT, and I think that's where our main discussion will be on today, as we are based at UCT and also talking about UCT students. So I worked as a peer counselor for a couple of years. So the peer counselor role started, I don't know if you guys can still remember the Uyinene time when that incident happened, and then the student wellness was looking for people just to offer the briefing session. This is how that role developed. And then we started just offering, as social work students, we like to help people, right? We like to give our time. So we started offering just the briefing session in residence, and then student wellness saw the need for our services. And then they actually established that program called peer counselors. So our main role there was to offer psychosocial support and counseling to UCT students. And that was done virtually and face-to-face. Yeah, but I'm not there anymore.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now with the new CARES program that you're taking part in?
Yeah, so UCT CARES is connecting students to the correct and relevant resources. So for example, some of the students, they don't know who to speak to, and they don't know where to send the query. So UCT CARES is a referral pathway. So we connect you to the relevant and the correct service that you need. So you simply just send an email, then we will connect you, and then we'll do a follow-up. So my role in that was a mental health counselor. So what I did, especially during COVID, where students were just going through a lot, that I think we'll be unpacking as we talk about mental health, it was to offer students counseling, psychosocial support again, academic support, right? And to also speak around their social factors. That's to let them know that they are not alone. That was my role. But because we are not a long-term treatment, so After, I will normally just offer them like 5 sessions, and then after that, I will refer them to the relevant department. So I was working under the student wellness, even though I was under UCT cares, so driving the traffic to the student wellness, where they will be able to get a long-term treatment, especially those that are in deep need of treatment. For an example, if they are in need of maybe a psychiatrist, I will refer them, I will conduct the assessment and refer them to a psychiatrist. If they are needing help, maybe they don't know who to speak to, I will also assist them with booking the psychologist and also counselors. Most of the time, students don't know that that service actually exists for them.
Okay, yes,
So,
for sure. Definitely.
yeah.
And so you mentioned academic support. What does the academic support entail as well? Because obviously a lot of us will understand what psychosocial support is and emotional support, but what does the academic support entail?
Okay, so academic support. The interesting thing, right, when you move from high school, moving to a university, especially a university like UCT, right, we all, for most of the students, maybe in their high school, they were high achievers. But the truth is that when you come to a university, you come to meet everyone who was a high achiever.
Yes.
Sometimes that can be challenging alone. So as we'll be talking around the actually the mental health and the causes of mental health, I'll unpack that more. So to answer your question, Stuart, so academic support is when we are actually taking the student through the academic journey. Sometimes maybe a student could just be struggling with just managing time.
Yes.
So academic support is to offer them sessions on how you can actually manage time, whether you're a postgrad or on undergrad, or just assist them, emotionally, how they can cope with actually just a simple thing as not passing a test, because that can cause a lot of mental health conditions to some students, because they are not used to that. So all of a sudden, I used to get an 18, now I'm getting 18. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? And it can actually have an impact on some of the students. So we take them through the journey, how they can manage their studies, how best, like maybe also not advising them on their career, but actually to make them understand in terms of the support that they may need in order for them to manage their studies. Because sometimes you realize, like, students come to university, but not only are they having to deal with their academics, but they also have other factors that can actually be a contributor to them not doing well in their academics. Am I making sense,
Yes,
guys?
yes.
Yes. So those things have a value. So when you're actually doing an academic support, you are assisting students to see, what could be the contributor to them not being able to manage their time, or maybe what are some of the things that are maybe making them not to be able to cope with their studies. That is what we call academic support. So you take them through to that journey.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Definitely, I think we can all relate as students that your first year university can be very shaky. Busi, as someone who was a student yourself and you've worked a lot with students, how do you think we can approach issues that affect students and affect students' mental health? Because you've already discussed the kind of academic issues that do impact a student's mental health.
First and foremost, I think the important thing is for students to understand the support that is available for them. Before you can even do anything, they need to know that actually having a mental health condition, there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, but what is wrong within that is not getting the help.
Yeah.
That's where the issue is, right? So maybe, firstly, I think if we could maybe do more of these talks like this, where we're normalizing mental health, because there's a lot of stigma around mental health. There's so much stigma because it makes you feel as if, especially if you are a student, right, and a UCT student, because firstly, it's like, I'm not good enough, I'm not able, right, and I'm not capable. And this is what, when you talk about the mental health, right, we're talking about those things because they affect your your what is this word, like your psychological being. Because when I develop a mental health condition is when I start to feel that I am not capable, right? I am not able to do things anymore. I am not myself. I'm not there anymore. Then I start to develop a mental health illness. I'm gonna make a simple example. You could be coming right to university as a student, then all of a sudden, while you are trying to make sense of everything, like you were saying, Bashi, just being a first year, but all of a sudden you are faced with an issue of not being able to pay your fees. That is a stressor, right? So And there's no way that you can forget about that. So as you are studying and then doing everything else, but at the back of your mind, you have this thing that's bothering you. So as much as I'm studying, as much as I'm doing this, but what does my life hold? What do am I actually going to finish this degree?
Yes.
And that can lead to a mental health illness because you're not able to speak to anyone about it, So you need to know that when I am faced with things, I can reach out for help, and there's this help that is available for me. And how can students know, like you were asking, is by us, people who have been on the journey, by start doing small things and, marketing those services that are out there.
I think in your answer, you've spoken a lot about how all the issues happening in our life aren't isolated. So socially, academically, those things all form a part of you.
Definitely.
So how can a student maintain a work-life balance?
I thought about this yesterday, and I want to say it is the willingness to sacrifice. Like I always tell my students, the willingness to sacrifice, because truly speaking, working and studying is hectic, right? But you need to start telling yourself that, okay, I'm doing this for this time, so there needs to be a compromise, because your life before you came to varsity and your life when you're at varsity, and especially when you are working, is completely different, right? So your heart, you need to have in that heart that I'm going to sacrifice certain things. I'm going to sacrifice certain things. I'm going to make an example with myself, for example, English, right? So when I came to UCT, right, I was a matured student, firstly, and I had a child, right? I started my undergrad as with a 3-month-old baby. At that time, I had to make a sacrifice that I will not have social life, because already I have another task that I'm doing. But at the same time, I need to understand that I might not be able to have social life for this period. Are you following me? Mm. Because a semester, if you think about it, that compromise is like a semester is only like 5 weeks. Then after you'll be able to do your other things, right? So to answer your question, I still think that there's a need for students to be willing to compromise and to sacrifice certain things, especially if you know that, because as students, we are different, right? So especially if you know that for you, firstly, you need to understand yourself as an individual, right? For me, I have to work because of this. And I am making peace with the fact that I will compromise this. So I might have used maybe like social life, right? But you can also find certain things that works for you. So to create that balance and that compromise as well. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, definitely, guys. You heard it here first. You can't have it all. One thing has to be compromised. What do you think universities can implement to better take care of students' mental health?
Yeah. I think this, the universities are already doing a lot, because there's, for an example, here at UCT, there's a student wellness that offers all the services for the students. But I think what's missing there is marketing the services again. So what I think, for an example, in my faculty, right, I think if they could have maybe some sort of a mental health supporter where students can go and have a place where they know, okay, fine, if I'm going through this, I can make a booking. So maybe for each faculty, like to make those services available, especially for certain degrees, like for example, for social work students. Social work students, I'm not saying that other students don't go through a lot. I'm even thinking for medical students who are actually working in communities and are exposed to things, but how do they come back and deal with those, right? But when they know, like after the hectic day or hectic week, we have a service that is open for us. So apart from the student wellness, the clinic, but if each faculty could actually prioritize mental health, student mental health, because students are going through a lot. Students are lonely, not like in that way that they, but they need people to speak to, they need people to be available, people to listen to them. So that willingness. So I think if faculties could offer that would be great. Why I'm also saying that, because it can also be an additional service. Because sometimes you realize, like in the student wellness, in order for you to be able to see a counselor, whether it's a psychologist, clinical psychologist, sometimes you realize like we have to wait for like 2 months. By that time, you're not going through that same thing again, or maybe you are in a worse position But if there is immediate help, even if it's just a short term, like CARES is doing,
Yes.
it's just a short term, just to contain the students, then you refer them where they can have long-term treatment.
So guys, we will definitely be putting the contact details of student wellness in the description down below. So definitely do contact student wellness when you need them. And also, we will be giving you information on the case. So definitely look at the description box and keep subscribing to our channel.
Very interesting to hear what you've had to say. And you mentioned a lack of awareness about these resources people have. And I mean, those of us that follow UCT, Just Kidding, UCT, all of the UCT pages, that provide great entertainment for us as well, do provide very important resources. I know recently Shawco Health did almost an hour-long interview with the UCT peer counselors, and these things are all very important for, and I would highly encourage students to follow Shawco Health, Shawco Education, to get access to these resources and understanding of mental health issues, and these podcasts will be shared there as well, and links to them. But this is a starting point. This is the first time we're hosting this podcast.
Oh, great.
You're our very first esteemed guest. But it's been something that has been seemingly not neglected, but it's been not spoken about even within Shawco as one of the largest student-run NGOs in the world, in Africa specifically though. It's been something that's not been spoken about much, and so these are the starting points. There's mental health programs, mental health matters being started by Shawco, and so it's the start of something great, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I love that, because the more you hear about something, the more it becomes known.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
The more it becomes known, the more we start to accept that this is actually okay.
Yes.
Then the more we see talks like this, the more students are starting going to be to open up. Students are going to be open up and say actually it's okay for me to feel depressed. Then I can reach out for help. I'm not an abnormal person, because I hear this all the time.
Yes.
So I think it's great. It's fantastic, guys. Great work.
Thank you. So you mentioned that, speaking about these things, and that leads us to the point you did mention earlier about destigmatizing mental health. You said it's one of the most important things to do with regards to mental health.
Definitely.
And so how would you best recommend destigmatizing it within our own friendship groups and within our communities and at home even? Because at university, not everyone, but it is more spoken about, and specifically the younger generation, understanding and tuning into our own emotions has become sort of the latest thing to do and been something that's more popular. But with adults, and speaking to your parents is never the easiest thing to do. So how would you recommend destigmatizing these issues of mental health?
The only thing that I can think of is SHAWCO Education. And when I speak about SHAWCO Education and talking about these points, like you are saying, Stuart, it has no color, it has no particular race. It's the stigma around mental health is everywhere. Yes. And it's happening across races, across countries, if I may say. So I think SHAWCO Education, right, where we are actually educating our parents, the older people about this, to make them understand that things are still are not the way they used to be. Yes. The way things are done now, the way we are able to cope with stresses is different with how they did in the past. Make them understand that it is not normal. I'm just thinking as you're talking about this, in some cases, like if you had to go to your mom, I'm sure some of you guys can relate and say I'm depressed, like, hey, what is depression? Yeah, you're not studying, you know what I mean?
It's because you're on your phone the whole time.
Because you're on your phone the whole time. So to them, it doesn't exist. Like, what is depression, But when you start to making them psycho-educate, and let's not get tired of doing that.
Yes.
Give information, and we give knowledge, because we are maybe in a better position of understanding this current pandemic, right?
Yes.
Because it is, but we can give information and share with them. So I think there's no other way out than to give and psycho-education.
Perfect, thank you. I mean, you mentioned it right there. This is an epidemic. It's a worldwide. It's a pandemic.
Yeah.
It's a mental health crisis.
Yeah.
And it's been something that's sort of been neglected in previous years, and it's starting to gain more traction within communities and stuff. But clearly, it's something we can all work on, and it's something it's as simple as, and very cliched, it starts at home, working from home and educating others, like you said, and understanding your own emotions as a first point. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, have never taken the time to look at themselves, look at how they're feeling and why they're feeling that way.
Certainly. And Stuart, I like the fact that you're saying it starts at home, right? Because especially if you're talking about students, right? So when you talk about the causes of mental health, right? So maybe we didn't mention that, right? There are few causes. There's a medical cause that maybe you are born with that, or maybe it runs in the family, and there is also physiological causes, right? The stresses that you experience at home, social factors is a big thing. So, and most of the time, those social factors are coming from our own families. These things that are stresses that we experience in our own families, and we bring those, to campus as we are trying to achieve this degree, but we're carrying this burden that we are experiencing at home. So, starting at home, I think that would be the main important point, to deal with those stresses from home.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's so informative for what you've shared with us, and obviously you're the expert in this room here dealing with it. And I mean, you've got much more experience, but it's so refreshing to hear these things that you just need to listen to yourself, listen to emotions, and understand what is your priorities and what
Definitely.
where your priorities lie, and understanding that not everything can be done by you in one go. You are going to have to cut some of these things out.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, we haven't had the opportunity, obviously this is our first podcast, so we haven't had the opportunity to get some questions from the audience, the virtual audience, but in the coming few weeks, guys, please do reply to any of the polls and questions that will be on the UCT, the Shawco Health and Shawco Education Instagrams, asking questions for the upcoming podcasts. And then with that, we will have questions then for the guests in the future.
Definitely, and you can also engage with this video by putting any questions or comments you have in the comment section down below, because we really love to engage with you guys on this topic. So Busi, if you were to give a final line on mental health to all students, university students, what would you say?
I would say mental health is not something to be ashamed of, firstly. And it does not mean that you are not able, neither are you not capable. However, though, as a human being, we go through phases, right? The most important thing is to understand your emotions, like Stuart was saying, understand what is happening to you, and mostly reach out for help. Because when you have a mental health condition, it does not mean that your life has ended. There are a lot of people who are dealing with mental health on a day-to-day, but what's more important is how do you actually get help? That is the most important thing. You can still have a fruitful life with a mental health condition, but you need to reach out for help. Don't close doors and say that I'm alone or my life has ended. Your life has not ended. There is a lot of support out there, especially if you're a UCT student. There is so much support that's out there for you. So just reach out for help so you're not alone.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And we really would encourage anybody who is feeling that way, or if this has resonated with you, do reach out to the support that is available. They are available. What are your times that you guys are available?
UCT Student Wellness, they are available 24/7, right? So you can book online under this UCT counseling. So if you just go to the UCT website and then book there, peer counselors, I know that they work in the evenings. And I think you have an option of being virtual or even face-to-face. So there's always people available. So they are open. There's even a crisis team that is based in at one of, I think it's All Africa House. They are there 24/7. So they're always available. So there's SEDEC as well. That's also worked very closely with UCT. So they are open 24 hours as well and offering all this type of support. They also run support groups. There's different support groups. So what you could also do, maybe just like the UCT peer counselors page, and then you will see all the support groups that they have online. So there's always someone to speak to.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You've really shown there's so many resources available to us, and this is something that also needs to be shared.
Definitely.
As you said, it's not something that's marketed very often or a lot, so this is our way of putting it out there as well. So thank you for sharing everything you shared with us.
Great.
It is much appreciated.
Thanks to you guys. This is great work.
I like that.
comment, and subscribe. And definitely do share this video to someone who you think needs to see it.
Definitely.
Until next time, it's a wrap for us. Bye.